I see it is time sharp. Welcome all to this workshop that Maite and me are organizing about new tools and strategy, mobility mentoring and low literacy. Before we start, we would like to introduce ourselves. Maite, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Maite Gadella and I am a communication expert and writer. And at Platform 31, I work with the Dutch Mobility Mentoring Network, and I was involved building the network and its communication strategy from the start.
Thank you. And my name is Lisanne Janselorkis. I'm a sociologist and I work as a project leader at Platform 31 as well. And I also work on the program Mobility Mentoring. What are we going to do this workshop? We're going to speak about some specific groups, for example, people with a mild intellectual disability, people with low literacy, and after that, Maite will address some tips and tools to use directly in our work with mobility mentoring, and we will end with a discussion. But before we start, we would like to ask you, because we are very curious, can you please let us know in the chat why you are attending this workshop? And then my colleague Maite, she will address some of your input. I see that Maite is nodding her head. Maybe we can have a look later on the responses in the chat. I would like to start with some background about people with a mild intelligence disability. And I will speak actually only about the context in the Netherlands, since we work from the Netherlands. Here in the Netherlands, there are 1.4 million people with a MID. And on paper, MID is very clear because it means, okay, at least for the Dutch context, you have an IQ between 50 and 80. But in practice, it's a bit more difficult because, for example, if you have an IQ of 78, do you also have an MID or not anymore? And moreover, this score is based on a test, and a test is made on a specific moment. And on that moment, if, for example, someone is not doing so well, how much serious can you take this score? And this score that will chase someone the rest of his life. And what I would like to address is that you should not only look at the IQ of someone, but also at other social problems and or limitations in the social adaptability. Here you see a slide with a lot of different people. And that point is what I would like to make, because the group of people with the MID, it's quite diverse. And you cannot say, okay, we're going to make a policy for the whole group, because it does not work like that. There are many different people in this group, and you should all look at them as specific individuals. And here in the Netherlands, what I think it's really important, do you speak about someone having a disability, or do you speak about someone that is just a bit different? Someone has a higher or a lower IQ, but does it make that someone has a disability or is just a bit different? Also here in the Netherlands, we see that there are many guides aimed at people with the MID. For example, people with the MID and debts, or people with the MID and addiction. Or people with the MID and criminal behavior. So again, that you are facing them all as one group, and that is not what we should do. Because I think it's really important that you get rid of this label, the label MID, because the use of this label makes it more easy to speak about people with the MID. Instead, you should speak with people with the MID. Of course, for a specific group, it counts that they need a bit more support. Some people that they can really, they need a bit more help in life. And there are some underlying factors. For example, now they don't have enough support, or they don't have proper support. What is really important as well is the social network. Someone should have really good contacts around them that can help them in life. And not everyone has this big social network that they can count on. What we see as well is that people with the MID are not always recognized. For example, when they come to you in the office or at the place where you meet them, they can act like they know everything, and they can act like they are doing well. But sometimes it's really difficult to see that they indeed have an MID, because they feel ashamed, and they will do everything also to hide it. And what for me as well, what we see is that society is getting more and more complex. Maybe you see it in your work as well. There is a lot of growing social inequality, unfortunately. Here in the Netherlands, we speak about a performance society. So it means that you only count when you make steps, for example, in education or in your job. And that makes it really stressful as well. And what is also important is to have easy and accessible information. And nowadays, a lot of information, especially in policy papers, it's very difficult. Working, you should consider the following domains. First of all, processing of information. For example, don't use too abstract or too much information, because it's quite difficult. Also, the understanding of language. For example, difficult words or too long sentences, that doesn't work very well. The executive functions. Think about the planning capacity, the reduced planning skills. It's also a point of attention that you should consider. Ability of solving problems. Think about regulating your feelings or reflecting on behavior. And last of all, also self-image, because it's really easy for some persons to look negative at themselves. So those are things that you should really keep in mind. Besides the group of people with MID, I would like also to speak about low literacy. And again, I'm going to speak only about the Dutch context. In the Netherlands, there are 2.5 million adults that are having difficulties with reading, writing, and or calculating. And that is 1 out of 6 people, 18% of all Dutch inhabitants. And if you ask me, I think it's quite a lot. Because also it has a lot of influence on someone's life. If you cannot read well, or if you cannot write well, for example, the influence on work. Some people, they do less often volunteering work, or they don't always have a job, or they are dependent on social assistance benefits. Also, if you look at money, for example, some people are facing more poverty or having more financial problems and or debts. And also consider health. For example, some people, they should use more often doctors or go to the hospital. Some of them even have a chance to die earlier. And for some, it's really difficult to frequently visiting some appointments in the hospital or at the doctor. So you can imagine that if you cannot read or write well, it has a lot of influence on your life. And what we also see is a lot of shame. I remember the story, I spoke with a guy, and every time he showed up in the office, he had his arm broken. I don't know how in Dutch we say mutella, but he had the arm broken, and he said, "I'm sorry, I cannot write right now. Can you maybe fill in this form for me?" And every time that he came, he had problems with his arm. And that point is that I want to make is that people feel very embarrassed, because in this society, it's considered normal that you can write or you can read. And unfortunately, not for everyone, it's normal. Maybe they didn't study, or they did not have the chance. And that is what you see as well. That's a lot of people that they are ashamed, and they give a lot of excuses. For example, I forgot my glasses, or I thought the appointment was yesterday and not today. Or maybe that they say, I never read. because I think that television is sufficient enough, or I will take this form with me, I will fill it later at my home. But there you see that some of them are used to make a lot of excuses, and I think that's also a point that we should focus on, because it should not be the way like that. And the first step is to recognize, look at some signals of low literacy, and really focus on that. For example, some signals are that people are only looking at the text and they don't move their eyes. When they write, they don't use punctuation marks. Some of them, they don't have an email address, or they don't use it. Not able to do mobile banking, or handwriting that you almost cannot read. Or for example, someone shows up 1 hour too early or too late on appointments, or has difficulties with navigation. These are all signals that I think you should take seriously, and it might be a sign of low literacy. These were some insights. Now my colleague Maite is going to share some practical tricks and tools with you. So I'm going to give the word now to Maite.
Thank you, Lisanne, for sharing these insights. Well, as mentors, we often come into contact with socially vulnerable people with limited cognitive skills. Whether it has to do with a mild intellectual disability, as Lisanne sketches, low literacy, or limited basic skills due to toxic stress or scarcity. Not only these issues, but also their worries, shame, stress, or distrust makes coaching them a real challenge. Well, what we learned is that tools used in the guidance process too often do not match with the participants' limited basic skills. And as mentors, we all know it is crucial to take into account the skills, capacity, and thinking ability of the participant in the support we give them and the instruments we use. So clear and understandable communication is a key instrument for people with limited cognitive skills to participate in society. Therefore, we created and shared a few fact sheets with practical tips for making the communication and contact with participants easier. Many of these tips we already practice, such as baby steps. Do not cover more than 2 or 3 steps or topics. Do not try to cover everything in one appointment and limit its duration. Explain the core of a topic in 2 or 3 short sentences. Light it up. Do not use too many examples or side issues. The participant may become confused. Repeat key points or have your client repeat the key takeaways, but do not let the client explain or repeat too much at once. And always stay connected. Listen, show understanding and empathy. Believe in them, have high expectations, motivate them. We also gave some tips about the language we use in writing or talking, such as do not use complicated texts. Make it simple and clear. Use short sentences with easy words, but avoid childish language. Choose concrete words instead of abstractions as much as possible. Avoid terms and concepts from another language. Be careful with sayings and proverbs, or at least explain their meaning. And make use of visual language, video images, figures, and other tools. So together with Stichting Lezen en Schrijven, that's a Dutch foundation who's committed to ensure that everyone can read, write, calculate, and use a computer or smartphone, the Dutch Mobility Mentoring team also translated these insights and tips into 2 concrete tools that can be directly used in our work with mobility mentoring participants. First, I would like to show you the visual bridge to self-sufficiency. As you can see in this visual bridge, we show the different steps on the pillars in icons and just a few words. It does not have to replace the other bridge you use, but it can help in discussing the different life domains and goals with your participants. After discussing it and determining the places within the pillars together, you can share this bridge with the participants afterwards as a handout. As you can see in this example, we purposely did not translate the content within the pillars because this content is specific for a Dutch situation and context. But we're going to share this framework after the session. So if you would like to use this bridge, I would like to encourage you to specify the pillars for your own situation. And maybe we can discuss a little bit about it later together. And the second tool I would like to show you is a visual one-pager. We made to discuss the impact and effects of toxic stress with our participants. As you can see, this visual one-pager sketches a picture of the causes, consequences, and possible solution for chronic stress in clear, simple text, and with a lot of visual support. This visual one-pager is designed to make it easier for the professional to discuss this topic with the participants. It gives you a few starting points to kick off the discussion. For example, you can ask them what they feel and start the conversation from there. As you can see, there are a lot of icons you can use to discuss about what they're feeling. So what do you notice? You can ask them, do you sleep well? Do you have good contacts? Do you have time to concentrate? You can see all kind of starting points to get the discussion going. It gives you, you can use this visual one-pager to help them explain to them that sometimes a lot of stress can cause an overload, for example, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. You can talk about what is stress, where does it come from, when does stress become unhealthy, and what does that mean? We also share a few ideas about what can help. But of course, the main thing here is always to encourage them to find their own way. Of course, you can also hand out this one-pager. Maybe the participant would like to discuss it at home with their family. I will also make this available to the American Exchange after this workshop. We already received a lot of enthusiastic reaction from professionals using this one-pager within the mobility mentoring approach, but also within other approach to support people with financial difficulties. So this is a thing we shared broader than just within the network. So please make use of these tools and adjust them for your own specific situation. And of course, we would love to get your feedback after you have used it in practice. So don't hesitate to contact us about it. These were the tools we created, and we would love to have a discussion with you about it. Yeah, in the chat we asked everyone, why are you joining this session? And we get a lot of reactions about how you would love to support people better who are low literate. So I think a lot of you recognize working with these people with this kind of background. Is there's someone who would like to share something about it? I'm not sure. Oh. Oh, people are having trouble with my audio, I see. Okay.
It's possible that someone wants to say something. Do you recognize working with people with this kind of a background? That we start a bit of a discussion. I don't know if it's possible with the technique, but we are really curious about your experiences. So maybe you can tell us something as well.
Yes, because these are the tools and tips we give to our professionals, and we are not mentors ourselves. So we were really curious about your experiences with working with these people.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Oh,
hear you.
hi. Okay.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you.
I'm Aisha Rodriguez from Horizons for Homeless Children. And I think you guys were part of the team that came and visited us last time. Well, it was 2 years ago, I feel like, maybe when a team came from the Netherlands to Boston.
Yeah.
But having said that, which we really loved having your team there, but having said that, we do work with extremely vulnerable populations. And so I think the challenge is always really, I love the tips that you gave, and I definitely am going to share those with some of my colleagues, because I think we do take for granted that, things like, don't use, terms that are really local to specific cultures or societies and things like that. Slowing down, having visuals present, and that we all need to be mindful with that. I think one of the things we struggle most is around, especially as it relates to setting SMART goals, the pieces of what's realistic. Of course, you always want to have the truest and highest expectations for all of the families you work with, so you don't want to um, do things in a way that doesn't seem, authentic or equitable as part of the process, and yet you want to be fair, to that person's own ability. And so we do let parents help lead the conversations, or really lead the conversations that way. But as coaches, of course, we have to, there's the push and the pull, the times that, as a coach, you have to kind of push your parent, or a person that you're coaching, out of the comfort zone. And so that can be challenging, I think.
Yes, it is. It is.
Do you have any experience with and advice how to get them out of that comfort zone?
I think that's something that we stay challenged with. One thing that we do is we try to set at first, if we have a parent that, for example, is struggling, that we've seen struggle with executive functioning skills in different areas. We may set like a very, very simple goal so that we can kind of get a quick and easy celebratory moment with the parent, so that we follow the process, but the steps are very simple for the parent, for the coach, to kind of like establish a little bit of a base and a moment of celebration to say, we did this and we did this together. Yay us, yay you parent, yay me coach. Now let's kind of move on. I think where we struggle is, again, around wanting to be realistic and fair, and yet wanting to, as coaches, push the parent towards what they're stating they want for their lives in different areas. Especially if parents aren't really aware of areas that they may struggle. And so they may not have a complete awareness of areas that they may be struggling cognitively and that sort of thing. And so it could make it challenging, because sometimes goals can be, that they're setting can be very unrealistic, at least in the present moment. Like, they need to break it down to more manageable goals, and sometimes that can be challenging. So we really haven't come up with a solution for that piece yet. We just try to work through it parent by parent.
Yeah, I recognize that. I think my clients are experts in survival, and they have so much tricks and tools to survive and to keep on going the way they are. And to leave that survival skill is also quite, I think they need to really have a lot of confidence in you to change their, the English word, I'm looking for it. I cannot think about the word in English on this moment. Sorry, but they stick to their old behavior, and they have to have a lot of confidence in you to try new behavior. I think that's really important, and it takes time to get them there and to open up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Exactly.
Lisanne always talked about, was the shame a lot of people experience, even if their disability is just temporary because of the stress they experience. But what we see is a lot of shame with these people, and they try to hide their disabilities, and that makes it really difficult for us to coach them on them.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely.
And we're hoping these tools can make that a little bit easier, because it opens up the discussion, we hope. Jackie is asking if we can give a case example using the tool. Well, and where do you start? Are parents assessed to determine intellectual capacity? A case example of using the tool. I did not use the tool myself yet. I just designed them. But is there someone from our network, from the Dutch network, who can share something about that? I'm not sure if...
I didn't use the tool.
No, not yet, I think. No.
It's new for me, so.
Yeah, I can understand. I can understand. Yeah, well, and it doesn't have to replace the tools you are already using. It's a adjustment. So, and where do you start? Are parents assessed to determine intellectual capacity? I'm not sure. Lisanne, can you?
Sorry, where do
Are
you?
parents assessed to determine intellectual capacity?
Yeah, I think it's quite specific. I don't know who asked the question, because the problem is I cannot see the chat. I only have the big screen.
Hi, good afternoon. It's Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
I just want to say thank you, first of all, for recognizing that this is really difficult work, and thank you for, taking it on and designing the tools. We also in child welfare, struggle with serving this population fairly and equitably, right? As far as their capabilities. So my question was, where do you start, like with the parents? Are they assessed, when coming in the door, when you start working with them, to determine their intellectual capacity? Like how do you assess them to know what level they're at?
Yeah, in the Netherlands we do a test. So to see what kind of IQ level someone has, and it's a test, as I said, it's on a specific moment. And you do it when you're younger, and you do it, I think, a couple times when you're in primary school, and sometimes you also do later in life. But typically, as I already said, this test has been made maybe for a few moments, and then it will change you the rest of your life. And that's why, if you would ask me, I think it would be really good to do this test at least every couple of years, so you can see, because nothing is fixed. It can change, of course. Yeah. And because Jackie, you are saying that you were working in the child welfare. Because it's a question from me to you, because my story was more focused on the adults. What do you see with the kids? Because it's not our major point of focus, but I'm really curious how you see that. Now you heard the story of Maite and me.
Yeah. So we work. Ooh, I'm getting an echo. Sorry about that. We work with the parents and the children. So I think the challenge for us was that we were using the same sort of assessment of parental capacity, and we weren't making a distinction for many years. So, for example, we were removing children from the care and custody of their parents, but not carefully assessing, or we were holding these parents with intellectual and developmental disabilities sort of to the same standards as normal functioning parents. And so we have had to course correct that for a very long time. So we're now starting to, so even the parenting classes that we would require a parent to go and participate in order to regain custody of their children were not meeting their needs and standards. So I think tools, you know, like this is a really great example of how we in the child welfare system and working with this population can begin to design tools and to work with parents and to help them to develop the skills and the capabilities that they need in order to parent their children effectively. So I think there's a lot of commonalities in the work. We are just beginning to use mobility mentoring in our child welfare system in New York City. So we're looking forward to learning a lot. And I was really impressed about this workshop because it means that we could have access to tools and information right off the bat that we could integrate into our child welfare system.
Yeah. And that's where we're very happy about, because what I said, the visual one pager to discuss stress, it's not just being used in the mobility mentoring program, but it's also being used by a lot of other professionals, because more and more people are getting convinced by the fact that stress is really a thing, and it is really important to discuss this with your clients and your participants when they come to you with problems. And stress is the most important gateway to a good discussion about all other aspects of life. So I'm really glad this is being used broader than just within the mobility mentoring program. So please share, also share this further. And I was wondering, does anyone make use of tools like this already? Because we just designed this, but all your organizations have the possibility to adjust the instruments for mobility mentoring. So I was wondering if there's someone who has experienced or has adjusted some tools, or has made some tools to, or have other tips to engage people with low literacy? Edison?
Our agency has not adjusted it, but seeing your visual bridge made me realize how important it is that we create a visual bridge for our agency. And in terms of utilizing it and assessing when someone would benefit from the visual bridge versus the bridge that we use today, I was thinking how nice it would be, especially in the Zoom world, coaching over Zoom, to have them next to one another, and just letting the participant pick which bridge would be more usable for them. And using that sort of moving forward in goal setting, because I've had so many people, we're in the middle of the conversation and I recognize how much this bridge is not working for my participant. And I think that would just be a really nice way if they were just together. So you have inspired to hopefully create a visual bridge for
please adjust, you make use of the icons, but make it your own. That's the whole thing, of course.
So helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's great what you said, use them together, or let the participant choose which one they want to use. I think that's a really good advice. Yeah. Okay. Someone else, tips, tools to share with us, feedback maybe, we can. Of course, you can send it to us by email after the workshop. And we have 10 minutes left, but I think, I'm not sure.
It was very clear. It was a good story. That's the point. I don't have questions.
It's too
on this
clear,
moment.
right?
Yeah,
We
it's
already
a clear
we're
story.
Dutch people are really to the point. So it was a
Yeah.
little bit of a short presentation, but it's just the insights and the tools we would love to share. And
Yeah, but I cannot see the tools in documents of this event. So
yeah, we're gonna share it, yeah, in PDF.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Yeah, that was the last question I had.
of course, we will. We
Yeah.
will. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.